Hey guys, welcome back to my colourful country life. Today I'm going to be talking about a topic I get a lot of questions about, and that is masking fluid. What is it? Why do we use it? And most importantly, how do we use it? So masking fluid is a liquid medium used to preserve areas of your colouring pages that you want to remain untouched by paint or ink or other mediums. And when you finished adding your mediums to your page, for example, watercolor paints, which we're going to be using today, and your page is dry, the masking fluid can then be removed, and that will reveal the untouched paper underneath. So it's left nice and clean, and you can go in with your pencils or other type of medium without any transfer. Now, masking fluid is typically made from a latex-based liquid, and the fluid can also contain ammonia to keep the latex in a liquid state. Some versions might include pigments or dyes to make the fluid more visible on the paper. Now, the Winsor & Newton masking fluid that I tend to use is slightly pigmented, so it appears a pale yellow in colour. Now, to apply the masking fluid, I use these tools here with the rubber or silicone end. Now they come in a pack with different size and shape tips. I do also have another set with smaller size tips, as you can see here. These are really good for getting into smaller or more detailed areas than these ones here. Now, the reason I use a rubber tipped applicator is because when you're finished, you can just peel off any masking fluid that's left on the end and your tool is nice and clean again. So both of these sets actually should be linked in my Amazon store down below if anybody is on the lookout for some supplies. Personally, I don't recommend using a paintbrush to apply your masking fluid, but if you do choose to, I would suggest using one that you don't care too much about, just in case it is never the same again. Also, it's important to wash your brushes in soapy water immediately after applying the product, just to prevent hardening. You can also wash them in soapy water prior to using the product, which might protect the bristles a little bit. So they don't get as damaged and the product doesn't stick as much. Now, you do need something to pour your masking fluid into. I would suggest using something small, like the size of the cap. You could actually use the cap. I have done it in the past when I'm just using a small amount for a small area. Just make sure you give it a good clean when you're done. Otherwise, it will be really hard to open your bottle next time. So now the reason I do say to use something small, if you pour it into a large area, the product thins out and it will start to dry and harden, which will make it harder to work with and you'll have to work a little bit quicker. Sometimes I do use my paint pot and just hold it on an angle. So one second, I have it here. This paint pot here, I'll hold it on an angle so the product all tips to one side. Other times I will use a palette like this one here because it's got the little sections that you can add the product into. I tend to just grab whatever is nearest to me at the time. You could use an old medicine cup. Today I'm going to be using an espresso cup. So before you pour anything out, make sure you give your product a good shake so the product is evenly distributed. You'll see if it's been sitting for a while, there's a dark yellow layer at the bottom here. So you just got to give it a good shake to mix it up. There we go. So when we apply it, our aim is a thin, even layer. If it's too thick, it's going to be too hard to remove and can tear your paper. So your paper can tear for usually one or two reasons. Actually, I'll add a third. So firstly, if you've applied it too thick. Secondly, you've let it sit for too long. And the third reason could simply be your paper quality. Actually, let's go for a fourth as well. If you're too rough and you use too much pressure when removing it, or you pull the masking fluid off, you are risking a tear as well. So how thick is too thick, you may be wondering? And that's a great question that I don't actually have the words to answer, but I will show you instead. So I haven't had any issues with tearing my paper when using masking fluid. Not yet anyway. So I'm going to show you the thickness that I use. I'm going to zoom you right in and hopefully that will give you a really good look at how thick I apply my masking fluid. The second most commonly asked question is how long is too long? I also don't have the words to answer that question, but what I'm going to do is time the process from the beginning of the application through to the background colouring, and I'll also be using watercolors today as they take longer for me to do than if I was using distress inks for background. So that means the masking fluid will be on longer because I'm using watercolors, and I will stop timing as we finish the removal process. Now, or as we begin the removal process actually. So one other thing, as we are painting on our masking fluid or applying our masking fluid, try your best to stay inside the lines. If you go over the lines, which I do and I probably will even, especially with these little parts of the flowers here. Now, it's not the end of the world if you do go over them, as what you can do is either fill it in with a small paintbrush afterwards, or you can use your pencils to fill in a small space if it's just like a really tiny little area. Just colour match with a pencil, or if you know you're going to be outlining with an acrylic paint or something similar, and that will cover it, just yeah, you can wait until the end when you do that. Just do your best to stay within the lines as much as possible. Now, we don't need to cover the entire flower because I'm not going to cover the entire page. So you can do that if you're going to just put your paint over the entire page. But what I'm going to do is colour around the areas where my paintbrush might get onto the petals. So this centerpiece, I'm probably not going to put anything on here, but I am going to go through all the outside edges, the crystals, and I'm going to try, I think I'm going to try and cover these up, but if it gets too fiddly, I may change my mind and just go straight in with a watercolour and not cover them with the masking fluid. So let's start our application process. First things first, I'm going to put some washi tape down here to protect this page. So what I do is usually measure out how much washi tape I'm going to need. Just tear that off. And then I'm not going to stick it directly on there because I don't want this to tear off my paper either. So what I normally do is just do this on my arm, or usually I use my leg, on your pants or your bare skin, and just tap it off so you can take away some of the stickiness. So you still want it to be tacky, but you don't want it to stick too hard and tear your paper. So we're going to go right in to the seam of the page. Okay, and I'm just going to press that edge down. And that will hopefully stop any bleed through from coming onto this page. Now, I have chosen a left-hand side of the page, so it's not exactly flat. What I might do is put a clip on part of it as I watercolor the other part, just to try and keep it flat. Otherwise, the watercolor might sort of drip this way. I'm just going to pop some scrap paper under here as well. Okay. I'm just going to actually push this bit of paper up for the minute, and I'm just going to use a clip to clip this page down until we get to this bottom part. I'll just clip the very corner. Okay, now we're nice and flat. So today I think I'm going to use these two tools here. So I do like the pointy ends. Will I use this one? I also like using that shape too because it's got the flat end to push up. I think I might use that one with the flat end. And then this one, just this pointy one here, for these smaller areas. This bit I find difficult to stay in the line, so we'll see how I go with it. I may not do these tiny little bits here. I might just leave them because I'll probably use like a metallic gel pen on that area. So let's tip out some of our masking fluid. Into our espresso cup. I've got to make sure I'm not that sleepy that I don't think I'm drinking coffee. Okay, so I think that should be enough for now. We can always add in more if we need to. So again, I'm still going to tip it to the side so I've got all the product in a smaller area. We just put the lid back on so this doesn't dry out. I will zoom you right in. Okay, so I'm going to start with our big tool here. Hopefully that gives you a really good view so you can see how much product I'm adding. I am going to start my timer. Okay. So we just get some product on our tool and pick an area to begin. So I'm left-handed, so I'm going to go from the right to the left. I'm just spreading that product around, and what I'll do is just show you, if I can bring that up closer. That's what it looks like. That's the thickness of the product on the page. Okay, so we're going to continue. So that's the product on the brush. Be careful, because it is a silicone product, a rubber product, the liquid can sort of drip. And if there is too much in one area, you can just use it to spread around. So you'll notice I'm sort of just dipping in the tip, like that, and that's all that's on there. It does dry really quite quickly. So I am trying to work relatively fast in each little area. So I'm going to go in here because the watercolor is going to come up to this edge and across here. So that way I can use my paintbrush straight down. I don't have to worry about getting around these fiddly edges. But I'm not going to do this entire area. It doesn't need to be fully protected because I'm not going to do a wash over the entire background. So that's a lot of product on there, so I'm just dragging it all the way around to spread it out. I'm just tapping the excess off so it doesn't drip. Okay. What I might do, just get my smaller tool, see how I go here. So I'm putting the product in the bigger section and then just dragging it through. So through that little circular bit and then dragging it down there. Trying to get that little gap without it spreading everywhere. Here we go. So I may as well use this brush to do these bits too. I'll come in with my big brush again to do the crystals. So by the time we finish the application, the part where we started, this part here, will likely be pretty much dry. There is a bit too much product on these little ends there than I would normally like to see. So I'm just taking some of the product off there to spread out here. Just go straight over that petal or leaf. Okay, I'm going to swap back to my bigger brush. Now you'll see here that it started to dry, the product, and I'm just going to do that and peel it off before we start applying again. Okay. The next petal, the next flower. You can see here the dark yellow bits are the areas that I've tapped off. I might just move it that way, and they're starting to dry. That scratchy sound you can hear is where a bit of the product has dried already on the page. Okay, I'm going to swap brushes again. Again, I'm just going to peel that off, make sure it's clean. You can see I'm barely touching the fluid. Okay, and now for our 3 crystals. Again, I'm cleaning my brush off. Just to make it easier to apply. Okay, so the application itself has taken 23 minutes exactly. So what I'm going to do now is pour this excess back into my bottle so I don't have any wastage. I'm just doing this off the screen so I don't accidentally pour it onto my book and make a mess. Okay, and I'm just going to use my brush to push any excess into there. Okay, so my product is back in the bottle. This is what my cup looks like now. That's going to start to dry, and once it's all dried, I'll be able to just, oh, there you go, see, it'll all just peel straight out. So I'm just going to leave it to dry. Okay, and if we have a look over here, this is where we started. That's ready. This whole flower is good to go. That's pretty much ready to go too. So I can still feel like it's a little bit, I guess, tacky, but it's dry, if that makes sense. It's sticky, but it's dry. So that I can see there's a big dollop there, so I'll leave that one. Oh, did I miss? I missed a spot. I did, I missed a spot. 1 second, let me just dab on that with my small brush. Okay, so I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes for that to dry. It's almost there. Okay, we're currently up to nearly 29 minutes. I am going to leave it a little bit longer. That's still a little bit tacky. And I can see that that one is still a little bit wet as well. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is get myself all prepared for my paints. And I'm going to just push this bit of paper down a little bit. I will leave the cloth on, the clip on for now. Just pull it down a bit. And try and clip it back together. I just want the clip to keep it flat while I work on that side of the page. Stick it right on the edge. There we go. That should do the job for me. Okay. So the paints I'm going to be using today are from the Paul Rubens Ulan set. So I'm going to be using the colour or colours Indigo, Berlin Blue and Translucent Turquoise, which is this one here, and this colour here. So I've got a dark tone, a mid-tone and a light tone, and I'm going to go darker near the edges and then our mid-tone and then the lighter tone sort of around where these little dots are, I think. I'm going to be doing wet on wet, so I have some clean water here and just a flat brush to put my water on the page. And to add my paint, I'm just using this brush here that was sent to me by Lightwish, who is also owned by Paul Rubens. So I'm going to be using that to apply my colour today. I've also got my water sprayer here, which is my distress sprayer from Ranger, and I'm just going to use this to activate my paints. And I'm just going to give them a little bit of a spray over here. And let me check on this. That side's good. We should be okay to get started. I think, what are we up to? 31 minutes and 38 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to start up the top on the right hand side. Now the reason I do this is because I am left-handed. If you're right-handed, you might want to start on the other side. It just stops me from smudging or getting paint smudges everywhere. All right, our background is now completely dry. I have had a little bit of warp in here, so I am going to have to go and iron this page before I start colouring. Let me know if you want to see a video on how I iron my pages to flatten them out. So I've gone and had lunch. My father-in-law actually came over as well, and I've been helping him find a drill in the shed. So we are actually at, let me do a time check here, 2 hours and 26 minutes. So we are now ready to remove our masking fluid. So when it comes to removing the masking fluid, I prefer to use the pad of my fingers for a gentle touch, and I roll my finger in circles. So don't press hard, just use very light pressure and it will start to roll off. You can always increase the pressure if need be, but try and start off as light as possible. If you do feel it's starting to tear, try to then lift it from the opposite direction instead. So you're bringing the two ends into each other to minimize any damage. Also, with the blue paint being on the masking fluid and also the colour from the paint itself, you might get a bit of colour on your finger. So if you do, you can just switch up fingers so you don't put any colour transfer on the white. So we're going to start from this end. I will zoom you in first, I think. Okay, so we're nice and close. I'm going to start from this end, and I'm just going to use my middle finger and gently roll, and you'll start to feel some of it pull up. There we go. And just follow the direction you feel like it wants to take you in. This bit's stuck together, so I'm just going to push that apart. So I can come up here. Oh, I might go this way. There we go. Okay, and just move that off to the side. We'll throw that away after. See now here, some people pull up. You can see this bit here. I could easily start to pull that, but that's how you might tear your paper. So I'm still going to keep going in circles. So I'm going to say I'm at probably a light to medium pressure right now, and my finger's starting to get a little bit of blue on it, but nothing too bad. Okay, just going round and round. Okay, let's try these little bits. My finger's starting to get a bit more blue on it. I'm just going to wipe it off. Okay, and just make sure your finger's dry again before you start rubbing. Okay, so that whole process took 2 hours and 47 minutes. Now we have a nice clean page. What I like to do is just run my hand over it to see if I can feel any of the masking fluid still on the page. Well, sometimes you can see it. So here it looks like there's a little bit still on the page. I'm just going to zoom you in because I want to share this little tip with you guys. Now, I don't know if you guys used to do this with blue tack like I did, but if you think there's any residue still left on, and you can see here, I will lift it up just in case, where there's a bit of blue, just along here, what I'm going to do is take some of the masking fluid that I've pulled off, roll it into a nice tight ball, and then just rub it in circles and see how cleanly that comes up. Now, I used to do this when I was younger and I'd blue tack posters to my wall. I would use a piece of blue tack and rub it in circles over the wall to get any little residue of that blue tack off. So you can see that's a lot cleaner now. I don't think I have anywhere else. Now, another thing to show you, I did mention earlier that if you do go outside the lines when applying the masking fluid, not to panic too much. So see here, I have gone outside the line. Now what I could do is get a really skinny paintbrush and just put a little bit of paint over the top, and you can see little bits here. But if I just grab my Prismas, 1 second. Okay, I'm thinking indigo blue, which is PC901, might be a good match for this. Sort of more, it's definitely a good match for the darker colour. It should work okay with the mid-tone. So looking at these little bits here, if I just do that with my pencil and cover those little bits up. Now, if you're going to go and colour these bits here with like a gel pen, I probably wouldn't worry about it too much. You can see how well that covers that little bit up. And of course, we'll need to use a lighter colour around the lighter blue. Maybe a peacock blue, 1 second. Okay, let's try peacock blue, which I think is PC1027, yep. And just, yeah, look, that's a good match too. There we go. So I can keep on continuing to do that around any of these edges. I don't need it to be done around the big flowers. It seems to be fine. It's just the little detailed areas that can be a bit tough keeping between the lines. This one here, just going to lightly do that and then go over the top. And if for some reason your coloured pencil doesn't match well, you can always go over the top of what I've just done with your paint colour again. Okay, let me zoom you back out again. And our next real test is going to be whether we can get that washi tape off without ripping anything. Just going to gently peel it off, and hopefully I haven't pressed it down too hard. A little bit of colour bleed through underneath, just along this edge here. That's okay, that's something this guy easily covered up. Oh, I can feel the paper ripping. I got right in that joint, didn't I? There we go. Come from the other angle. A tip when you are pulling something like this off is always pull near the paper. Don't pull from up here. That's when you're likely to tear. And I didn't press this down hard at all when I first put it on, so we shouldn't have any problems. So far, so good. Perfect. There we go. So a little bit of bleed through onto the page just up here, but that's okay because it will be on the sky so it can cover it up. I need to go and iron my page now so I can go in and colour the rest of it. Now what I'm thinking of doing is colouring these flowers white. So I did colour some white flowers in another Hanna Karlzon book last month. I can't remember which one it was. I'll pop a picture up here, and I did get a request on how to colour my white flowers, so I might do a video showing you how to do that using these flowers here, and then I'll finish it off with the crystals. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Happy colouring and bye for now.